Should you leave your 9 to 5 this year? And then I'm going to tell you what you need to know about upcoming pay cuts, how they might affect you, and what you do if you have to face it. Let's go. Helping you win at work so you can win in life. This is the Ken Coleman Show. All right, a lot of headlines in the news about executives of big companies taking pay cuts. Some are voluntary, some are not voluntary. In other words, they've been voluntold, if you've heard that phrase before. And this is just the nature of uncertain economic times and companies trying to read the tea leaves to the best of their ability when they see economists and people talking about a potential recession, which has been kind of thrown around for the last year. And yet it hasn't materialized. But nonetheless, that's the game that big public companies play when you've got a stock price involved. They've got to be delivering the right returns for their stockholders. And so that means they're constantly in this, juggling match with revenues and expenses. And so you'll see a lot of this, from time to time, where big time executives and big time companies will announce things. So just, it just can happen. And we're going to talk about that in the next segment. But because of that, people are more and more open to this gig economy. In other words, I might have multiple different gigs, and then the collective of all of those gigs give me a lot of flexibility financially and professionally. And then you add in inflation is up. Doesn't seem to be cooling anytime soon. Gen Z being very, very mobile in their entire life. And now they're entering the workforce more and more each day. And so you take all that together. Layoffs, recession, executives and companies looking to trim their salaries. And all of a sudden, LinkedIn publishes, as a result, I think, of all of those factors, LinkedIn publishes its annual list of big ideas for 2023. And one of them was the gig work trend or the side hustle or freelancing, kind of just mash all that together, is going to be a very, very popular trend. And I think that's right. Now, why is the gig economy or freelance work, side hustles, why is it so popular? Well, it allows you to increase your income, maybe to adjust for inflation, to save up money, to prepare yourself for a potential layoff. It also diversifies your income, which is always good. If one dries up or one lessens up, I can pour in more time over here. And then they offer a lot of perks. The companies are doing more than they've ever done before to attract workers. And so if I'm working here and I'm working there and I'm working here and I've got all these multiple streams of income, I'm increasing income. I'm setting myself up because I've got diversification, and then I got a lot of perks. 51% of Gen Z workers are identifying as freelance or gig workers compared to just 36% of all other ages. So again, the mobility, the flexibility, Gen Zers, they've grown up in this kind of world where everything's just kind of free flow, on the move all the time in between their things, and they're on all these social media platforms, and everything's fluid. They'll sit in a car and text each other. They're all sitting in the same car. And that's all, again, a behavior of, I'm kind of disconnected. Think about it. They've never been more connected than they are now. Once they got the phones and social media, and they're wildly connected. I was making fun of one of my boys the other day. We were sitting watching TV, Alex. We're watching sports or something. And I'm going to use my phone as an example, and I'm not worried about embarrassing him because they don't watch my show. And so we're sitting in my bonus room upstairs watching sports, and he does this number right here. And I thought to myself, oh, he's looking at his hair. I would never use my device to look at my hair, but I get it. And then he did it about 20 seconds later. Gave this cool look. And I realized what he was doing is he was snapping a photo and just telling people I'm in my house watching TV. Just they're connected. They take pictures of themselves and tell everybody I'm at my house right now, wherever they are. And so then like a day later, I took him somewhere and he's in the car and he's doing the same thing. So I started making fun of him. He got all irritated. But this is the example of they're more connected than ever, but they're disconnected. And what I mean by that is they're connected with devices and everybody knows where they are, but there's not that true connection where if I'm sitting in a car with my buddies, we're talking it up, man. We're yucking it up. We're laughing. We're telling stories. We're opining on whatever's going on in the world. We're actually engaging. You don't see two 50-year-old dudes going like this and sending a picture to my buddy. Hey, I just want you to know I'm about ready to cut my grass. We don't do that. So the point is that this Gen Z group is like, I'll just do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, and the gig economy is going to be very, very popular for a long time to come. Now, so the question is, should you leave your 9-to-5 job this year and go all gig, all freelance? All right? It's a viable question is my point. That was the setup. So let me just give you some practical things you do. Number one, you got to research. And research starts with you searching yourself. All right, so I'm just going to look at my skills and my experience. First two things. If I'm thinking about the gig economy or freelance work, I got to start with what do I have to bring to the table. So I want to search myself and write down my list of what I think my skills and experience are that might lend themselves to freelance work. And then I go start researching platforms like Upwork. The most in-demand freelance skills are accounting, lead generation, data entry, customer service, graphic design. Skills with the highest year-over-year growth in earnings on Upwork's platform were sales and business development, 54%. Data entry, 47%. Accounting, 45%. 3D animation, 44%. So that's the research I want to see. Now that I know what I bring to the table, skills and experience, what's out there? And now I start the calculation is step two. How much side gig can I make? Or how much money in my side gig or freelance work can I make? Can I make 50% of what I'm making in my day job? Can I make more? And this is just simple math. Once I begin to realistically see what is possible or how long I would have to make this amount of side money to then make the step, not the leap, from day job to the multiple side gigs or just full-time freelance. That's the deal. Research and calculate. It's a math thing. How much money would I need? And so I'm going to go side gig it, freelance it, until I can build up a really nice emergency fund or a slush fund. If I were to go full time, I got some money to pay myself. That's the plan. So it may be time to leave the 9-to-5. Go check it out.
Do you know what you were born to do? In order to get hired at a job you love, you need to get clear on your talent, passion, and mission. That's why our team created the Career Clarity Guide. In just a few minutes, this free tool will walk you through a process to discover what you do best, that's your talent, the work you love to do, that's your passion, and the results that matter to you, your mission. Then you'll feel more confident throughout the job search process. To get started, go to kencoleman.com/clarity.
All right, folks, welcome back. If you are enjoying this show and you're watching via YouTube, would you subscribe to our show and share it? If you think there's somebody that could really get the help of getting unstuck or getting some clarity to help them get out of that confusing, what do I do next situation, that'd be great. And if you listen via podcast, would you follow us, give us a 5-star review, and share with a friend? We would appreciate that. All right. So at the top of the program, I teased that I was going to cover this because we talked about the gig economy, the freelance work, and kind of deciding, should I leave the 9-to-5 day job for more flexibility? And I touched on this, and so I want you to just get the picture here of what's happening at the higher levels, what could happen to you, and I'm going to give you 4 things to do if you were to take a pay cut, because I don't want you freaking out. It always sucks, but I'm going to give you 4 practical financial things that you can do, all right? But let's just set the scene. Amazon is one of the biggest companies in the world, so I use them as an example all the time. Amazon's corporate employees will make less money in 2023, according to those who are aware of this, and this is reported to the Wall Street Journal this week. According to the report, Amazon pays its corporate employees a large chunk of their annual salaries in restricted stock units, which is very, very normal for large public companies. So stock is a big part of their pay package. But if you haven't been paying attention to this, 2022's stock performance for Amazon will mean that their total salary is going to slip somewhere between this is a pretty sizable slip between 15 and 50%. That's a pretty big slide. Okay. This is happening with other companies and other executives. I could go through the list one by one. You don't need me to do that. That's available to you on your favorite news website. But it's in the news every day, where you've got some big-time CEOs are voluntarily taking a cut. And they're saying, hey, I'm going to step out in front of this deal, and I'm going to try to model the way. And then you've got a lot of companies that are saying, look, across the board for our executive level, everybody's going to kind of take one for the team, if you will. Okay? Now, it is possible when we see news like this, and that's why I'm reporting just this story and then helping you see that a lot of large public companies are asking their senior level executives to take a pay cut, forcing it, the whole 9 yards. So understand that this is a little bit of that, these companies start seeing this, it starts getting reported, and all of a sudden what was maybe unpalatable for one leadership group or a CEO, when they see other companies doing it and it's reported, and then they go, well, this is kind of what the trend is right now. So they get a little bit more courage, is my point. And so do not be surprised in this calendar year to see more news around pay cuts. Hey, we paid you well. Profits have changed. We're trying to prepare for a potential recession. And so here's what we're going to do. And so we're going to cut our expenses up. We're not going to lay you off, but we're going to change your compensation package. All right? This very well could happen. Okay. So let's just set this up. Before I give you the practical, let's talk about the mental and the emotional, because there is no way, no matter how well it's explained, no matter how much financial sense it makes, if this is brought to you. And by the way, it is safe to say that I'm making a very large assumption that it would be explained to you well. And that it would make a lot of sense. That's in an extremely healthy situation. All right? So it may not make a lot of sense, and it may not be explained very well. All right? So you have 2 scenarios. Makes a lot of sense, explained well, or it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's not explained well. But either way, it sucks. Best case scenario, it still sucks. It's explained well, makes sense. It still doesn't feel good when you go, I was making this, and now I'm going to make this. It's just a psychological grenade. Shrapnel everywhere. Affects me mentally, affects me emotionally, and because of those 2 things, could affect me physically. Could affect me relationally if we're living way too tight and we don't have any margin. This is real. Okay? All right, so with that being the context, all right, we got to understand that it's going to have that kind of negative effect on me, and I've got to be prepared to deal with that. Okay? Whether that's going and riding your motorcycle, going and chopping wood, heading to the gym, running, taking your kids to a fun movie, taking a half personal day to get yourself right. I mean, I just want to make sure, I don't want to just kind of, slide over the fact that in order to be able to do what I'm going to tell you to do practically when you take a pay cut, we've got to be in a good place mentally and emotionally to do so. We don't make good decisions when we are reeling emotionally and mentally, and a pay cut will do that to anybody. Even somebody who's making big bucks, to where it doesn't affect their livelihood in any way, it still affects us psychologically and emotionally. So get centered, get some perspective, get some people around you to lighten you up, get you in a better headspace. Now, here's what you've got to do. Step one, and these are just super practical, but when you get a pay cut, if a pay cut is brought to you, the first thing you've got to do is look at your budget. Some of you may not even do a budget, but in this moment, if there was ever a good time to do a budget, it's when you take a pay cut. And you got to get real numbers in front of you so you are dealing with realities, because remember, I just talked about how it feels psychologically, and that will just take the voice of fear and doubt and just ignite them. They're yelling at you. So we've got to look at real numbers. We got to look at a budget. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm cutting expenses. My pay has been cut, so I've got to react in kind and cut. Every membership, every subscription, everything you can cut. Cutting out meals that we're doing out, and we're going to just tighten up immediately. Why? To blunt the damage as best as possible. Second, I'm immediately thinking about side gigs. We talked about this to start the show. I'm looking for freelance work, anything I can get, because if I take I'm just making this up, I take an 8% cut, then I'm going, all right, what does that really mean in my paycheck? What's my take-home difference? And that's the budgeting process to really get this and go, okay, so I'm making this up as a round number. So I'm making $600 less per month, real take-home money. How am I going to make up for the $600 cut? By me cutting my expenses, or is what I like here, or I'm going to go make the money in a side gig. Hey, how about selling some stuff? Selling stuff you got, maybe learning how to flip some stuff. Now that we get that budget right? So these are other things I can do. And then I think the last thing is you got to be looking for a new gig. I think you have to consider a new gig. It's a very healthy thing to do. You're not jumping, you're not running, but you're going, okay, I took a cut here. Is there a healthier environment? And I've got to look at this. And it just gives me perspective. Even if I don't make the jump, it gives me perspective that I'm not landlocked, if you will, into this one company that's clearly making some cuts for some reasons that, I don't have any control over. And so what it does is it gives me more confidence because I'm clear that, I have some options. So quick review, I'm going to get a budget in play, and I'm going to cut expenses everywhere. I'm going to look for that side hustle, gig work, freelance work to make up for and maybe even make more than the cut I just took. I'm going to sell stuff to help get that savings where it needs to be and provide a cushion. And then I'm going to look for a new gig. And hey, here's what you're going to learn. It's not the end of the world. You're going to be okay. Don't freak out.
Are you wondering if you should leave your current job or stay put? You're not alone. That's why we created the Should I Quit My Job quiz. In just 5 minutes or less, this quiz will help you determine if you're at the right company and if you're in the right role. If you need to make a move, you'll even get practical next steps to keep you moving forward. Listen, stuck is a choice, and life is too short not to do what you were created to do. To take the quiz, go to kencoleman.com/quiz.
Helping you get unstuck so you can become unstoppable. This is the Ken Coleman Show. Thank you for joining the program. All right. I haven't been as fired up about a topic like this in a long time. I'm looking at this from every angle, and part of this frustrates me, part of this saddens me, and part of it excites me because I go, I want to try to move the needle on this. I have a lot of work to do, but stay tuned. I'm going to do everything I can to move the needle. Well, it turns out the experts are starting to get pretty public on something I've been saying for a couple of years, and I love saying I told you so, and this is one. That we have some big-time economic problems facing us if we don't deal with a major social problem that has been building and building and building for decades. What is the problem? America's low labor participation rate. Now, you hear me talk about this on the program all the time, and that is that we are at a historically low unemployment rate. And that is obviously a good thing. 3.4% in January, dropped another tenth of a percentage point from 3.5 to 3.4. This is the lowest level in more than 50 years. But Dr. Samuel Gregg sees eye to eye with me. He's a distinguished fellow. That's what I want to be once. I just want one time for somebody to go, we're happy to have Ken Coleman, a distinguished fellow. I kid, only sort of. He's a distinguished fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research, and he went on social media recently and said the employment number that should concern Americans is our abysmal labor participation rate. So the unemployment number is really good, 3.4%, but our labor participation rate is very poor. In other words, the amount of workers, or should I say, eligible workers, who have stopped looking or have just said, nope, I'm not even interested in working. The way he said it was, Americans have stopped looking or decided that they don't want to work or cobbled together enough forms of welfare rather than work. More on that in a second. He calls this a social and economic disaster, and Dr. Samuel Gregg is, in fact, correct. Rachel Gressler, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, said that the 20 to 24-year-old age group has had the greatest decline in employment, particularly men in that age group. And these are young men and old boys. Let's just be clear. There's a lot of immaturity in that 20 to 24-year age group. In this group, and it's men, it's boys. It's not women and girls. It's men and boys in this age group. Employment is down 10.5% since 2000. Now, the labor participation percentage for the 20 to 24-year-old young men peaked in 2000. That was the highest it had ever been. Now it's down 10.5%. Now, this is what Gressler said. When you talk about people who are kind of displaced from the education or worker experience routes that otherwise they would have gone into, and now instead they're just idling at home, living with mom or dad, or maybe in a group setting, or able to live off welfare benefits, they're not getting the experience and education they need. So I think it's really troubling going forward that we could see this have a long-term impact. There's no question about this, folks. This is serious. There's no question that one of the culprits of this 20 to 24-year-old young men demographic not working, not even interested in working, they've quit looking for it, and they're not interested in going to work, is government benefits. There's no question that the welfare state is a part of this, but I don't want to spend most of my time on this because, quite frankly, maybe I've just gotten so frustrated with welfare and what it actually does to people that I've just kind of given up because I don't trust our politicians to actually do anything positive. So my input is going to be not political, and it's going to be social. The question becomes, when you look at data like this, the question becomes, why are so many young men aged 20 to 24 not working? That's the many hundreds of millions and billion-dollar question. And here's the simple answer. Why are so many young men aged 20 to 24 not working? Because they don't have to. Daddy, mama, grandparents, aunts and uncles, siblings, friends are supporting them. The combination between those close network people and government benefits have put these young men in a place where they just look at the picture and they go, well, if I look at the numbers and I go out and I work X amount of hours a week and I can make this versus I've got this being provided to me, the trade-off isn't worth getting out and going to work. It's that simple, folks. This is not a mystery. And so here's the really, really troubling reality. We see from data that of this 20 to 24-year-old young male demographic that aren't at work, the majority of those are young men that don't have a college degree. Now, some of you hear that and go, well, see, I told you, Ken, that's why people need a degree. No, wrong conclusion. Because if you flip it, those young men that do have a college degree are the most likely to call themselves a quiet quitter, where they're just like, I'm just going to do the bare minimum to get by. We have a crisis in both groups. Well, let's go back to this group that's not working at all. Why are they not working beyond that they don't have to? What are they reporting to the pollsters? Here's the very interesting response. They don't have the status that they think they deserve or that they thought they could get, meaning obviously making money and the type of work that they would like to do. And so because they've not attained it, they've given up. Now, there's a couple of culprits. First, because the cultural message in America for decades has been the best way to success is through a college degree, and you've got young men coming up and they couldn't go to college because they, for low-income families maybe, or from families that just didn't want to do the student loans or couldn't do it or whatever have you is the situation. Because they couldn't afford to go to school, they didn't, and they immediately began to realize, oh, I've been told my whole life that this is the best way to success. I can't do it, so I don't have much opportunity at all. Why even try? That's the first culprit. The second one, they don't have anything to look forward to that they want to do with their life. We got to address this, folks, and I'm here to do it.
Did you know that recruiters take an average of 6 seconds to scan a resume? And that's if they ever see it in the first place. In fact, 75% of resumes are rejected before reaching a hiring manager. Listen, folks, if you want to get hired, you've got to make your resume worth noticing. That's why we created How to Write the Perfect Resume. This free guide will walk you through the 5 steps to stand out in the hiring process to get you your dream job. If you want to get started, go to kencoleman.com/resume.
All right, time to coach some people up so that they can get clear, get confident, and get courageous. Clarity leads to confidence. Confidence leads to courage. And we've got it all backwards in this world. We just think that we're going to talk ourselves and hype ourselves into courage, and I'm just here to tell you that never works. So let's get you clear so that you can confidently step out and courageously stay on the path. We do that through our coaching. You can also send your question, ask at kencoleman.com, or shoot me a DM at Instagram on, at Ken Coleman. There you go. On the gram that nobody says anymore. Let's go to Franklin, Missouri, where Justin is. Justin, you're on the Ken Coleman Show. Hello.
Hey, Ken.
How are you, Justin?
Hey, doing well. How are you?
Good. All right, let me learn a couple quick things about you real quick. What are you doing for a living right now?
I'm an auditor.
Auditor. All right. How much money are you making?
About $49,000 a year.
All right. Did you go to school for that?
Yeah, I went to school for accounting, and I started my master's in finance, and then stopped doing that because I got in a lot of debt.
Uh-oh. And how long you been an auditor?
I've been an auditor for a year, and then held an accounting job for a year before that, and a year before that. So
okay, good.
I've been hopping around.
All right, great. So how can I help you today?
Well, I'm currently stuck in my career path. I'm starting to notice in myself that I'm just not an accountant. That's just not what I think that God created me to be. And
what are the signs of that? I love that conclusion. Tell me real quick, what are the signs that have made that kind of clear to you?
Well, I love people. I love to help people. I like to advise people, and I know that you can do that in accounting, but I like accounting only about, probably about 20% of my day. And,
interesting.
The rest of the time, it just kind of drives me crazy, and my performance shows because I don't have the passion for it.
All right. So how can I help specifically today?
Well, I took your Get Clear assessment.
Good.
And nothing showed up as an accountant in there. I'm trying to figure out how to pursue one of those results without putting my family in a financial situation where
all right, let me answer that at a high level, okay? Because it really doesn't matter what those professional possibilities were, because, by the way, that part of the assessment, these are just ideas to get you going. I would not lock in on those. What you're really going to take is your purpose statement that we give you based on your assessment results, your top 3 talents, the top 3 types of work you love to do, and the results that motivate you. That's the high-level job description. Those professional possibilities are just brainstorming, kind of getting you started. But here's the answer. No matter what you figure out, the way to not put your family in financial risk is you are going to build a bridge, and you're going to walk solidly, smoothly, slowly, purposefully across that bridge from where you are to where you want to be. There is no jump here. So what that means is high level, you're going to figure out what it is you want to do. What mountaintop do you want to climb? Then you figure out what is it going to take to climb the mountain? What qualifications do I need? How much is that going to cost me to get qualified? And then how long is that going to take? And that's how you build a plan to where your family's never going to be at risk. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. I guess my concern is just I'm kind of at the end of it now. Like, I just feel like I'm just not performing at work anymore. And
yeah, well, but I got a phrase, I got a quote for you. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of his most famous quotes, and I think the best thing he ever said. He said, "When you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on." That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
You got a wife and babies that They require for you to tie a knot and hang on. So you're almost to the end, but you're not almost to the end in that you're not going to be able to hang on much longer. You're almost to the end that now you've got some serious intensity and urgency to go find the new path. But in the meantime, you're going to be grateful for the accounting work you do get. You're going to try to get a little bit more of that 20% that you do like during the day. Let's see if we can bump that up to 40%. That'll keep me hanging on a lot longer. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is a mindset play right now. You can do hard things. Okay. You can do hard things. And you have to do hard things, my friend, because your wife and kids and your mortgage payment and everything else depend on it. So there is no, I can't do it any longer. Yeah, you can. Hang on the line. Let's make sure you have the book From Paycheck to Purpose so that you can move forward with those results.
Did you know that recruiters take an average of 6 seconds to scan a resume? And that's if they ever see it in the first place. In fact, 75% of resumes are rejected before reaching a hiring manager. Listen, folks, if you want to get hired, you've got to make your resume worth noticing. That's why we created How to Write the Perfect Resume. This free guide will walk you through the 5 steps to stand out in the hiring process to get you your dream job. If you want to get started, go to kencoleman.com/resume.
Thanks for listening to The Ken Coleman Show. For more, you can find the show on demand wherever you listen to podcasts and watch the show on YouTube. You can also find Ken across all social media by following @Ken Coleman.